Look, I have seen a lot of stupid decisions in my 300 cycles as a sports commentator for the Galactic Hunting Championship, but nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what happened when Earth submitted their entry form. Let me set the scene for you. The Galactic Hunting Championship is not some backwater competition where amateurs show up hoping to bag a few space rabbits. No. This is the premier event in the known universe where the most lethal, most skilled, most absolutely terrifying predators from every corner of civilized space come to prove who sits at the apex of the apex. We are talking about beings who have spent their entire lives perfecting the art of the kill. Creatures so dangerous that their home planets require special insurance just to let them off-world. The prize? 10 million credits, a seat on the Council of Hunters, and the kind of fame that lasts for generations. The cost of failure? Well, let us just say that the medical teams earn their pay, and the mortuary staff never lack for work. I am Krelth. By the way, Krelth, of the Burning Sands, if you want to get formal about it. My people, the Vexorians, ruled the hunting circuits for 6 consecutive championships before the Thraxians showed up with their ridiculous muscled bulk and knocked us down a peg. Bitter about it, maybe a little, but I am professional enough to call the games fairly, even when those overgrown lizards are involved. So there I was, standing in the staging area of the Nexus Arena, the floating coliseum that orbits the dead star of Cragmore, watching the contestants arrive one by one. And what a lineup it was this cycle. First came Gorath the Render, a Thraxian champion who stood 9 feet tall and was quite literally built like a walking tank covered in scales that could deflect plasma rounds. His claws could tear through reinforced steel, and his track record included taking down a void serpent single-handedly, which, for those of you keeping score at home, should be impossible. The crowd went absolutely wild when his transport touched down, thousands of spectators from dozens of species, all screaming and chanting his name. Then we had Silix of the Crimson Moons, a Jantari assassin whose species specialized in environmental adaptation. You know, those beings who can shift their biology to match any terrain, any atmosphere, any condition. That is a Jantari. Silix had won the championship twice before, and her collection of trophies included creatures that most hunters would not even attempt to track. She moved like liquid shadow, and her reputation alone made half the other contestants nervous. Next up was Brachus, a Cormithian berserker, whose people literally have a chemical rage state built into their physiology. When Cormithians hunt, they enter what they call the Red Dream, a battle trance that makes them virtually unstoppable killing machines. Brachus had killed 17 apex predators in his last championship appearance, and he was hungry for more. His arrival involved a lot of roaring and beating his 4 massive fists against his armored chest. Subtle, he was not. We also had Yanara, a Sylveskian tracker, whose compound eyes could detect movement across 3 different visual spectrums simultaneously. Her people were responsible for mapping the most dangerous regions of wild space, and Yanara herself had survived encounters with creatures that made grown warriors weep. She was quiet, methodical, and absolutely lethal with her energy lance. The list went on and on. 47 of the deadliest hunters in known space, each one a legend, each one absolutely certain that this would be their year to claim ultimate glory. And then, the Earth transport arrived. Now I should mention that Earth was a relatively new addition to the galactic community. They had only made contact about 50 cycles ago, and most of us considered them a curious novelty at best. Sure, they had some interesting technology, and yes, they seemed unusually aggressive for a species that had not blown itself up yet. But hunters? Come on, they were barely past their own planetary conflicts. When their entry was announced, I actually laughed. Out loud. On camera. Not my most professional moment, I will admit, but I was hardly alone. The entire audience dissolved into a mixture of laughter and confused muttering. Earth? Sending a representative to the Galactic Hunting Championship? It was like watching a toddler sign up for a professional gladiator match. The transport ramp lowered and out stepped their champion. She was, and I am not exaggerating here, underwhelming. A human female, maybe 5.5 feet tall, with dark hair pulled back into a simple tail. She wore practical clothing, nothing fancy, nothing intimidating, no massive armor like Gorath, no adaptive camouflage like Silix, no visible weapons beyond a simple combat knife strapped to her thigh and what looked like a primitive projectile rifle slung across her back. Her name, according to the registry, was Kira Chen. The laughter grew louder. Several hunters did not even bother hiding their amusement. I saw Brachus actually slap his knee in what I assumed was Cormathian humor. Even Cilix, normally stoic to the point of being stone-faced, allowed herself a small smile. Kira Chen walked down that ramp like she owned it, completely ignoring the mockery, her expression calm and focused. She scanned the assembled hunters with dark eyes that gave away absolutely nothing, no fear, no anger, no reaction whatsoever to the fact that she was being openly ridiculed by the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. I leaned into my recording crystal and said, with all the confidence of someone who had covered 20 championships, that Earth had just signed their representative's death warrant, that this was going to be a short, embarrassing display that would hopefully teach these newcomers some humility. Now, looking back at that recording, knowing what I know now, watching my smug, ignorant face making predictions, I want to punch myself in the mouth. Because Kira Chen did not just compete in that championship, she redefined what it meant to hunt. The Nexus Arena is not what you would call a friendly environment. Actually, let me rephrase that. The Nexus Arena is specifically designed to kill you in the most creative ways possible, and if you somehow survive the terrain, well, that is when the real fun begins. Picture a contained biodome spanning 200 square miles of artificially generated hellscape. We are talking about every type of deadly environment you can think of, all crammed together in a patchwork of pure nightmare fuel. Dense jungle zones where the trees themselves are carnivorous, volcanic plains where the ground can open up and swallow you whole at any moment. Frozen wastelands where the temperature drops low enough to freeze methane solid, acidic swamps that can dissolve bone in under 30 seconds, and my personal favorite, the Razorback Mountains where the rock formations are sharp enough to slice through combat armor. The arena shifts too, because apparently regular death traps are not exciting enough for modern audiences. Entire sections rearrange themselves every few hours, ensuring that no hunter can ever get too comfortable with their surroundings. You might set up camp in a nice defensible cave, only to wake up and find yourself at the bottom of a lake that was not there before. But here is the thing that really makes the championship interesting. The terrain is not even the main threat. No, the real stars of the show are the predators we release into the arena alongside the hunters. This cycle, the arena masters had outdone themselves. They had acquired specimens that made even me, safe in my commentator booth 3 miles above the action, feel a cold spike of fear run down my spine. 20 bladewing raptors, creatures from the death world of Scar Prime that hunt in coordinated packs and can fly at speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour. Their talons are monomolecular edges that can slice through just about anything organic. 5 titan crushers, massive armored beasts weighing upwards of 30 tons each, with jaws powerful enough to bite a military transport in half. They are mostly ambush predators, which somehow makes them even more terrifying because you never see them coming until it is way too late. A dozen shadow stalkers, semi-transparent predators, that are basically invisible in low-light conditions. They have been known to follow prey for days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Their venom causes complete neural shutdown within seconds, and the prize specimen, the one that had the entire arena holding its collective breath, a fully grown void drake. Yes, you heard that right, a void drake. Those things are supposed to be extinct, but apparently someone found a surviving egg in deep space and thought it would be hilarious to raise it for this championship. The creature was 40 feet long, could breathe plasma hot enough to melt titanium, and had an intelligence rating that put it uncomfortably close to sentient. Releasing it into the arena was either brilliant or completely insane, and I still have not decided which. When the starting horn sounded, the veteran hunters moved with practiced efficiency. Gorath charged straight into the jungle zone, his massive frame crashing through vegetation like it was not even there. Within 10 minutes he had already taken down 2 bladewing raptors, ripping them apart with his bare claws while roaring his dominance. The crowd loved it, chanting his name so loud that my audio feeds distorted. Cilix disappeared completely. One moment she was standing at her starting position. The next she had melted into the terrain so perfectly that even our high-definition tracking cameras lost her. Jintari hunters do not fight fair. And why should they? Survival is not about honor. It is about being the last one breathing. Brachus entered his red dream almost immediately, his eyes glazing over as the battle chemicals flooded his system. He went tearing through the volcanic plains, hunting anything that moved. Within the first hour he had killed 3 shadow stalkers and was working on tracking a titan crusher. Pure, unfiltered aggression. It was honestly impressive to watch in a horrifying kind of way. Yanara set up a sniper position in the Razorback Mountains, her energy lance already claiming kills from over a mile away. Calculated, precise, Efficient. That is how Sylveskians operate. And it was working beautifully for her. And then there was Kira Chen. While every other hunter was busy racking up kills and establishing dominance, the human did something that nobody expected. She sat down. Right there at her starting position, she just sat down on a rock and started watching. Not hiding, not setting traps, not charging off to claim territory, just sitting, observing, her head slowly turning as she scanned the arena with those dark, unreadable eyes. She pulled out what looked like a primitive paper notebook and started making marks in it with an actual physical writing implement. I zoomed in with my camera, baffled. What in the seven hells was she doing? The audience started murmuring, confused, amused. Some were already calling for her elimination, saying she was wasting everyone's time. But here's what made my scales itch with sudden unease. Every few minutes she would glance up at the sky, tracking something I could not see. Then she would make another mark in her notebook. Her expression never changed. Calm, focused, patient. She was not preparing to hunt the predators. She was studying the other hunters. By hour 3, the scoreboard was lighting up like a festival display. And the veteran hunters were doing exactly what everyone expected them to do. They were dominating. Gorath had accumulated 11 kills, including one of the Titan Crushers, which he had somehow managed to flip onto its back before tearing into its soft underbelly. The footage was graphic enough that we had to blur some of it for the more squeamish species in our audience. His strategy was pure Thraxian doctrine. Overwhelming force applied with brutal efficiency. If it moved and was not him, he killed it. Simple, effective, and very, very bloody. Sulix had 7 confirmed kills, though I suspected her actual count was higher. Gentari hunters do not always leave bodies behind, and several predators had simply vanished from our tracking systems with only brief thermal signatures to suggest what had happened to them. She was moving through the terrain like a ghost, adapting her biology to match each new environment. In the jungle she was green and fluid. In the volcanic zones she became heat-resistant and smoke-gray. Watching her work was like watching art. If art involved a lot of creative dismemberment. Brachus was up to 14 kills and showed no signs of slowing down. The Cormathian berserker had torn through the southern quadrant like a natural disaster, leaving a trail of carnage that would take weeks to clean up. His red dream state meant he felt no pain, no fear, no hesitation. He was a walking apocalypse, and the crowd could not get enough of it. Yanara had been more conservative with 9 kills, but each one was a perfect shot. No wasted energy, no unnecessary risks. She had established control of the high ground and was methodically eliminating anything that wandered into her sight lines. Professional, clinical, deadly. Other hunters were racking up respectable numbers too. The competition was fierce. Exactly as it should be. And then there was Kira Chen, still sitting on her rock with 0 kills to her name. The mockery had evolved from amused to annoyed. Audience members were demanding refunds, saying Earth had sent a defective representative. Some of the bookmakers had already paid out bets on her being the first elimination. She had become the joke of the entire championship, and honestly I could not blame people for thinking that way. Except something was bothering me. Something I could not quite put my claws on. She had moved exactly 3 times in 3 hours. Each time she relocated to a new observation point, always choosing positions with excellent sight lines and natural cover. She was not hiding. But she was not exposing herself either, and that notebook she kept writing in that primitive notebook, filling page after page with observations. I pulled up her biometric readings out of curiosity. Heart rate, steady. Stress hormones, baseline. Adrenaline, normal resting levels. She was not scared, not panicking, not even slightly rattled by the absolute chaos happening around her. That was when things started getting weird. At hour 4, Riken the Flayer, a Quellan hunter with a reputation for brutal efficiency, went silent. His transponder signal just stopped. One moment he was tracking a pack of Blydoing raptors through the eastern jungle, the next moment nothing. Our cameras could not find him. His life signs had flatlined. The arena medics scrambled to locate his body, but there was a problem. No body, no blood trail, no signs of struggle. He had simply ceased to exist. 15 minutes later, Thraxus, a Mandorian warrior with 12 kills already on the board, suffered the same fate, moving through the acidic swamps 1 second, gone the next. Transponder dead, no distress signal, no final transmission, just gone. The audience grew quiet. This was not normal. Predators left evidence. They left bodies, or at least pieces of bodies. This was something else entirely. At hour 5, Kira Chen finally moved with purpose. She stood up, stretched like she had all the time in the world, and began walking north toward the Razorback Mountains. Not running, not sneaking, just walking with calm, measured steps. She moved like someone taking an afternoon stroll, completely at odds with the death trap environment surrounding her. A bludgeoning raptor spotted her from above, shrieked its hunting cry, and dove toward her with talons extended. What happened next took maybe 2 seconds, but I have watched the replay about 500 times since then. Kira did not run, did not panic. She simply adjusted her stance slightly, brought her rifle up in one smooth motion, and fired a single shot. The bludgeoning raptor, moving at over 200 miles per hour, dropped from the sky like its strings had been cut. One shot, dead before it hit the ground. The bullet had entered through its left eye and exited through the back of its skull, severing the brainstem with surgical precision. The crowd went silent. That kind of shot should not be possible. The target was moving too fast. The angle was too difficult, and yet she had made it look effortless. But here is what really got my attention. After she fired, she did not even check to confirm the kill. She just kept walking, already reloading her rifle with practiced efficiency, like she had known, with absolute certainty, that the shot would land exactly where she intended. She reached a cliff face overlooking a deep ravine and set up a position behind some rocks. Then she pulled out her notebook again and made more notations. I managed to zoom in close enough to see what she was writing. Hunter positions, movement patterns, behavior predictions, terrain advantages, kill zones. That was when it hit me like a plasma bolt to the face. The reason we could not find Rakin or Thraxis, the reason their transponders had gone dark without any struggle, the reason their bodies had vanished. Kira Chen had not been ignoring the championship. She had been waiting for everyone else to tire themselves out, to become predictable, to focus so intently on the arena's predators that they forgot the most important rule of any hunt. Always know who else is hunting. She was not here to compete with the other hunters. She was not here to prove herself against the arena's predators. She had let everyone else waste their energy, their ammunition, their focus on creatures that were not the real threat, because in Kira Chen's mind, the real prey were the 46 other hunters in this arena. The predators we had released were just obstacles, distractions, background noise. She had been studying everyone, learning their patterns, identifying their weaknesses, planning her kills down to the smallest detail, and now, after hours of patient observation, after letting everyone else establish their territories and fall into comfortable routines, she was ready to start her actual hunt. At hour 6, another hunter vanished, then another, then 2 more in quick succession. Our cameras could not catch her doing it. Our tracking systems showed nothing, but the pattern was undeniable. Hunters were dying, and they were dying in ways that suggested someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The arena scoreboard updated. Kira Chen's kill count jumped from 0 to 6. Not 6 predators, 6 hunters. Confirmed eliminations, though we still had not found any body. The crowd's mockery died in their throats. The laughter stopped. And for the first time in 20 championships I felt genuine fear crawl up my spine. Earth had not sent a hunter to compete. They had sent an apex predator to thin the herd. By hour 8, panic had replaced confidence, and the championship I had covered for 3 centuries had transformed into something I did not recognize. Something terrifying. The scoreboard told a story that should not have been possible. 15 hunters eliminated, not by bludgeoning raptors or titan crushers or even the void drake. No, they had fallen to Kira Chen, and the remaining contestants were finally starting to understand what was happening to them. Gorath the Render, the overwhelming favorite to win this whole thing, was the first of the elite hunters to figure it out. I watched his biometrics spike as he stood in a clearing, surrounded by the corpses of creatures he had killed, slowly turning in circles. His thermal vision had picked up something, a heat signature that vanished the moment he focused on it. He roared a challenge, beating his chest, demanding that whoever was stalking him show themselves. Kira did not take the bait. Of course she did not. Why would she? Instead, she waited until he turned his attention back to tracking the void drake which had been terrorizing the western quadrant. She waited until he was focused, committed, moving through a narrow canyon with high walls on both sides, and then, only then, did she make her move. 3 shots rang out, echoing off the canyon walls. Not at Gorath, that would have been pointless against his armored scales. No, she shot the cliff face above him, triggering a rock slide that buried him under several tons of stone. His transponder went dark instantly. His life signs flatlined 3 seconds later. the 9-foot-tall champion of the Thraxian Empire, killer of void serpents, favorite to win his 3rd championship, taken out by a 5.5-foot-tall human who understood that you do not fight strength with strength. You use the environment, you use patience, you use your brain. The crowd sat in stunned silence. Someone in the luxury boxes actually fainted. Silix, to her credit, adapted immediately. She went to ground, using every stealth technique her species had developed over millennia. She became practically invisible, her biological camouflage perfect, her movements completely silent. If anyone could avoid Kira's hunt, it would be her. Except Kira was not hunting with her eyes. That became clear when Silix, hidden in a grove of carnivorous trees, suddenly staggered and collapsed. Our medical scanners detected a fast-acting neurotoxin in her system, but the delivery method made no sense. There were no dart wounds, no injection marks, nothing to suggest how the poison had entered her bloodstream. It took our forensics team 6 hours after the championship ended to figure it out. Kira had spent her first 3 hours in the arena not just observing the hunters but observing the predators. Specifically, she had been watching the shadow stalkers and collecting samples of their venom using techniques that our experts still do not fully understand. Then she had weaponized it, coating her knife blade in several makeshift darts with a substance that caused complete neural shutdown. Silix, the 2-time champion, the master of adaptation and stealth, died without ever seeing her killer. Her camouflage had been perfect. It just had not mattered. Brackus was still in his red dream state, which meant he was functionally immune to fear or tactical thinking. He was pure instinct and rage, which made him predictable. Kira led him on a chase through the volcanic plains, staying just far enough ahead to keep him committed but never close enough to be caught. She was hurting him, though he was too deep in his battle trance to realize it. She led him straight into the territory of the Void Drake. The resulting fight was spectacular and brief. The Void Drake, already irritated by the noise and chaos of the championship, took one look at the roaring Cormithian charging into its domain and responded with a plasma breath that turned Brackus into a smoking crater. The Drake then turned its attention toward where Kira had been standing, but she was already gone, vanished into a lava tube before the creature could focus on her. She had eliminated one of the most dangerous hunters in the arena without firing a single shot. She had used the environment's apex predator as her weapon. The tactical brilliance was almost insulting in its simplicity. Yanara, watching all of this unfold from her sniper position, made a decision that probably saved her life for another few hours. She abandoned her post and went mobile, constantly relocating, never staying in one place long enough to establish a pattern. Smart, professional, exactly what I would have done. But here is what I noticed that made my blood run cold. The arena's predators, the Bloodwing Raptors, the remaining Titan Crushers, even the smaller Shadow Stalkers, they were avoiding Kira, not attacking her, not even tracking her. They were giving her a wide berth, like they recognized something in her that triggered every survival instinct they possessed. A Bloodwing Raptor, one of the most aggressive predators in known space, literally changed its flight path to avoid flying over her position. A Shadow Stalker that had been stalking her for 20 minutes, suddenly broke off and fled in the opposite direction. The predators knew, somehow, on some primal level, they understood what the hunters had taken too long to figure out. Kira Chen was not prey. She was not competition. She was the apex, and everything else in that arena, hunters and predators alike, were on her menu. By hour 10, 23 hunters were eliminated. By hour 12, that number had climbed to 31. The championship had become a massacre, and the scariest part, Kira was not even breathing hard. Her biometrics remained steady, her movement stayed calm and controlled. She was not fighting for her life, she was working. This was just another day at the office for her, and the office, apparently, involved systematically dismantling the galaxy's most elite hunters with the kind of efficiency that would make an automated factory jealous. Hour 15 marked the moment when the Galactic Hunting Championship, the most prestigious event in known space, officially became a horror show. 16 hunters remained, 16 out of 47, and every single one of them knew, with absolute certainty, that Kira Chen was coming for them. Some tried to form alliances which would have been against the rules under normal circumstances, but the arena officials had quietly decided that survival trumped regulations at this point. 3 Kelvorian hunters banded together in the frozen wastelands, setting up overlapping fields of fire and taking shifts on watch. Good tactics, solid defensive position. It should have worked. Kira picked them off one by one over the course of 40 minutes, using a combination of extreme range shooting and environmental manipulation. She triggered an avalanche that separated them, then hunted each one individually while they scrambled to regroup. Clean, efficient, absolutely merciless. Yanara lasted longer than most, and I have to give her credit for that. She had figured out Kira's pattern, or at least part of it. The human preferred ambush tactics, using terrain advantages and patience to set up perfect kill shots. So Yanara stayed mobile, never stopping, never establishing a routine, constantly scanning every direction with her compound eyes. It almost worked. She survived until hour 17, which was more than most could say, but eventually exhaustion caught up with her. She had been moving non-stop for nearly a full day, burning through her energy reserves, and her reaction time slowed by just a fraction of a second. That fraction was all Kira needed. One shot, center mass, and Yanara went down. The Sylveskian tracker, veteran of 3 championships, eliminated by a species that most of the galaxy had dismissed as harmless curiosities just days ago. By hour 18, 7 hunters remained, and they made a desperate collective decision. They converged on Kira's last known position, coordinating their approach through emergency channels, determined to end this nightmare through sheer weight of numbers. I actually thought it might work. 7 experienced hunters, all of them skilled enough to have made it this far. All of them now fully aware of what they were facing. Surely that would be enough. Kira let them come. She did not run, did not hide, did not even try to relocate. She found a defensible position in the Razorback Mountains, a natural choke point where the terrain limited their approach angles, and she waited. What happened next will be taught in military academies for generations, though I suspect most tactical instructors will not believe it actually occurred. She killed all 7 of them in under 6 minutes. The first 2 went down before they even saw her, victims of precisely placed shots that exploited gaps in their armor. The third charged her position, and took a knife to the throat when he got close enough. The 4th and 5th tried to flank her, and walked straight into traps she had set up using material scavenged from the arena itself. Simple deadfalls and tripwires that would have made our ancestors proud. The 6th actually managed to land a hit, grazing her shoulder with an energy bolt, but she did not even flinch. She just adjusted her aim and put 3 rounds through his skull. The 7th, seeing all of this unfold, tried to retreat. Kira ran him down, physically chased him across half a mile of broken terrain and put a bullet in his back. And then in the silence that followed, she sat down on a rock, pulled out a medical kit from her pack and calmly bandaged her shoulder wound while the entire galaxy watched in absolute shock. The scoreboard updated. 46 eliminations, 1 hunter remaining besides Kira Chen. That last hunter was a Draxian named Kelvor, who had spent the entire championship hiding in a cave system, avoiding both predators and other hunters, hoping to outlast everyone through pure cowardice. He had 0 kills to his name, and under any other circumstances he would have been disqualified for inactivity. But the rules stated that the championship ended when only 1 hunter remained alive, and technically Kelvor was still breathing. Kira stood up, checked her rifle, and walked toward the cave system with the inevitability of a tidal wave. It took her 30 minutes to find him. Kelvor surrendered immediately, begging for mercy, offering her the prize money, anything to make her stop. Our cameras caught every pathetic second of it. Kira looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she stunned him with a non-lethal shock device, and dragged his unconscious body to the arena's extraction point, triggering his emergency evacuation. She did not kill him. She let him live, not out of mercy, but because the hunt was over and he was no longer a threat. The message was clear. She had not been here for glory or revenge or bloodlust. She had been here to complete an objective. And once that objective was achieved, she stopped. Professional, controlled, terrifying. The championship officially ended at hour 19. Final score: Kira Chen with 46 confirmed eliminations. Every other hunter in the competition, she had killed them all, or in Kelvor's case decided their fate with complete authority. The crowd sat in silence. Nobody cheered. Nobody celebrated. We had just watched a masterclass in apex predation, and it had shaken every assumption we held about Earth and its inhabitants. When they brought her back to the staging area for the award ceremony, she looked exactly as she had when she arrived. Calm, focused, utterly unbothered by what she had just accomplished. She accepted the 10 million credits with a simple nod, declined to make a speech, and asked when the next transport to Earth was leaving. I caught her on her way out, my professional curiosity finally overwhelming my fear. I had to know. I asked her how. How had Earth produced someone like her? What kind of culture creates this level of predatory excellence? She looked at me with those dark, unreadable eyes and said something that I will never forget. On Earth we have been hunting each other for 300,000 years. You sent your best predators to hunt animals. We sent someone who has spent her entire life learning to hunt the ultimate prey, other humans. Everything else is just practice. Then she walked onto her transport and left, leaving behind a galaxy that would never ever underestimate humanity again. I have been calling championships for 300 cycles, and I can tell you this with absolute certainty. Earth does not have apex predators. Earth has humans, and that is so much worse.